going over the Unit 7 review. I'm going to focus on number 19. I'm also going to do 21, and then we have number 23 as well. So number 19, we have 2x squared minus x minus 15. I'm going to do something here that I haven't been doing lately, but we've been hitting these problems more often. So I'm just going to double check and make sure that we don't have a greatest common factor here that I can factor out. So we've got a 2, a negative 1, and a negative 15. Is there a greatest common factor between those? And the answer is no. So I can't factor out any greatest common factor here to make this problem a little bit easier for me. So with that being said, I'm going to have to solve this problem using the long way of factoring. So this is going to be one of those long problems. So I'm going to label my A value, my B value, and my C value. And I'm going to make my X. And I'm going to try and break this into two parts. So I'm going to keep my X stuff and my factoring stuff on the top half. And then the bottom half here is where I'm going to do the grouping method and factor out all that stuff. So so when I multiply A times C here, it goes on the top, B's on the bottom. A times C is my 2 times negative 15, that's negative 30. And my B value here is a negative 1. It's not a negative X, there's a 1 in here. And so we want to write down the numbers when we do this. So from here, I need to find two values that will multiply to negative 30, but also add to negative 1. And so Mr. Fee did something kind of unique here, and I like this, so I'm going to do it here. I'm going to show you this if you haven't seen this in class. I'm going to type in 30 divided by x. I'm going to ignore the negative sign here. I'm going to do 30 divided by x, and this is a trick that you can use to find all the factors of 30 pretty quickly. So I'm going to go to the table, and if you look at the number 2 here, we already have two factors of 30. Because in this equation here, they will plug in 30 divided by 1, and we get 30. 30 divided by 2, that's our x value, and we get 15 as a kickback for an answer. And so we have two factors of 30 here, 1 times 30, and we have 2 times 15. Now, if you have Desmos up, if you click on the 2 here and hit enter a couple times, it'll pre-populate the information for you. And it'll do 30 divided by 3, and we get 10. So we have another factor here, 30 and 10. And then notice when we take 30 divided by 4, we get 7.5. That's not a factor. 30 divided by 5, we get 6, and that's another factor. And so I'm going to put it over here. And so those are all the factors of 30. And so when you get to the really big numbers, like 100 or something like that, you can do 100 divided by x and hit enter a bunch of times, and it'll do all the math for you. And so that's why I like this. It's just a quick way of finding all the factors. So I need to find two of these numbers that have a difference of 1. And notice we have a negative 30. So actually one of these values here, of these 8 numbers, needs to be a negative to multiply to negative 30 and then add to a negative 1. And so what happens here is if I make the 5 a positive 5 and the 6 a negative 6, 5 minus 6 is negative 1. And again, if you don't understand that, just do the math, right? Just plug it into Desmos. Just do 5 minus 6, and you see a negative 1. So these are our factors here. We have a plus 5 and a negative 6. These two multiply to negative 30, and then they add to negative 1. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rewrite my original equation. I'm going to put a 2x squared. But my negative 1x is going to become a plus 5x. And then we have, we're going to write down a negative 6x. So this is from lesson 7.6, by the way. And I have videos going over this if you're confused by what I'm doing right now. But the negative 1x splits to the 5x minus 6x, and then I'm going to put a negative 15 here. And then we're going to use the grouping method. Now that we have 4 terms here, we can use the grouping method, and we can factor this properly. So is there a greatest common factor of 2 and 5? Let's find out. So GCF of 2, 5, I get a 1. So I can't really factor out a number, but I can factor out an x here. And since I can't factor out a number, the numbers stay the same. But my x values decrease because I pull out an x here. So we're left with 1x here and then no x here. Because x times 2x is 2x squared. X times 5 is 5x. Now I can copy my 2x plus 5 down. And then can we find a greatest common factor of negative 6 and negative 15? Let's find out. We have a 3, but does 3 times 2 give me a negative 6? No. Does 3 times 15 give me a negative 15? No. Desmos made an error here. It should have factored out both of those negatives. So this needs to be a negative 3. So you always want to check this right here. Is negative 3 times 2x a negative 6x? Yes. Is negative 3 times 5 a negative 15? Yes. And a clue is, whenever this term is negative, this greatest common factor is going to be negative as well. And so whenever this is negative, this ends up being negative as well. Well, I can group these two guys into one factor, x minus 3, and I can group these two into another factor, and I get 2x plus 5, and this is my answer. So these are the factors of 2x squared minus x minus 15. And if you want to check your answer, you can use the FOIL method or box method. And when you multiply these two, it should return back to your original value. And so I would especially do that if you have extra time on the test. I'm going to jump over to 21. And 21 is a special problem. It says factor 2x squared plus 6x minus 8. I want to point out here, notice that my a, my b, and my c values are all even numbers. So that means I can factor out at least a 2 here. So I'm going to put a 2, comma, 6, comma, negative 8. And since these are all even, I can factor out a 2. So I can factor out a 2 here, and I'd be left with x squared plus 3x minus 4. How did I get these? If you divide your greatest common factor into all these, 2 divided by 2 is a 1, 6 divided by 2 is 3, negative 8 divided by 2 is a negative 4. And so these are the factors so far of this problem. Now notice my a value is equal to 1. I believe this is lesson 7.7. When a value is 1, we have to do a lot less work. And so that's why it's important to identify the greatest common factor on problems, because sometimes it'll make you do a lot less work. So we only need to do the top half of what we did on 19, and then we'll have our answer. So number 21, we have our a is 1, right? Our b is a 3, and our c is a negative 4. So I'm going to do my x here, and my a times c, 1 times negative 4 is negative 4, and then my b value here is a positive 3. So we need to find two values that will multiply to negative 4, but add to a positive 3. So what are factors of 4? Well, we have 1 and 4, and we have 2 and 2. And so if you wanted to, again, you could have just done 4 divided by x, go to the gear, hit the table, and then we have 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. And if you go any further, nothing else works out because we already have 4 and 1 here. So I need to find two numbers that will multiply to negative 4 but add 3. Well, the only one that has a difference of 3 here is 1 and 4. But for this to add to negative 3, the negative 1, or the 1 needs to be negative, because negative 1 plus 4 will equal 3. And again, if you're not sure about that, go to Desmos and just do, negative 1 plus 4, and we get a positive 3. So these two will multiply to negative 4, they'll add to 3, so these are my two factors, negative 1 and a positive 4. And since a is equal to 1 here, I can just put those with an x, so x minus 1, and then x plus 4, and we are almost done with this problem. We are leaving something off, and I want you to think about this for a moment. What am I leaving off from up here on the top, right? Remember, we factored out a 2 here, so that 2 is part of our answer. So the answer here is going to be 2 times x minus 1 times x plus 4. If you multiplied all these together, you would get back to 2x squared plus 6x minus 8. How would you do that? You can multiply the 2 into the parentheses, and you'd end up with, let me just do this real quick. I think it's worth checking your answer. How do you check these kind of problems? I would multiply 2 into x here and get 2x, and 2 times negative 1 and get a negative 2, and then I would write x plus 4 here. So you multiply the greatest common factor back into one of the terms, and then x times 2x is 2x squared. X minus 2 is a minus 2x. 4 times 2x is 8x. And then 4 times negative 2 is a negative 8. And if we look at this, we have a 2x squared. The 8x minus 2x gives me a positive 6x. And then we have this negative 8 here. And so we return back to our original answer. Sorry, I didn't realize I was off the paper there. So again, I multiplied all these. 2x squared matches the 2x squared. The 8x minus 2x is a positive 6x, and the negative 8 matches the negative 8, and so we checked our answer, and that looks good. Last problem I'm going to do here on this video is problem number 23. Let's get this going up here. So it says Lionel's rectangular projection screen has an area of 4x squared plus 12x minus 24 units squared. Write an expression to represent the dimensions of the screen. So this is a reverse, or the opposite of problem number 11. So problem number 11 is we're given the dimensions and we're trying to find the area. Here on this problem, we're given the area of a rectangle and we're being asked to find the dimensions. So we're going to have to factor. So we are going to have to take this question, 4x squared plus 12x minus 27. Again, if we had a rectangle that we're given the area and we're being asked to find the length and the width on this. So we're going to have to factor because we're going to have a binomial times a binomial is going to get us a trinomial. So this is going to be a lot like what we did on 19 and 21. So is there a greatest common factor of 4, 12, and negative 27? Let's find out. So greatest common factor 4, 12, negative 27. And the answer is no. So we cannot do what we did on 21 because A is not equal to 1. We're going to have to do what we did on number 19. We're going to go through all that work because this is where A is not equal to 1. So I'll try it. The screen's a little slow here. So here we go. So I'm going to use 19 to help me out, right? So I'm going to label my A, B, and C on this problem. On this one, I think I'm going to do my X on the left side, and then I'll factor on the right side. So A times C is a negative 108, but our B value is a positive 12. So we need to find two values that will multiply to negative 108, but add to a positive 12. And this is where this trick is going to be useful here. So I'm going to type in, I'm going to just leave the negative out for now. I'm going to do 108 divided by X. And I'm going to hit the table. And we start here. We have two factors of 1 and 108. So 1 and 108. We also have 2 and 54. So those can multiply to get 108. And I'm going to hit enter a couple times here. So 3 times 36 works. We have 4 times 27. 5 times 21.6 is not one because we have a decimal here. We also have 6 times 18 is another one. 7 times 15.4 doesn't count. So let's keep going here. We want to go until the X and Y values kind of overlap. So 8 doesn't work, 9 and 12 does. And it looks like there's no more factors here. So that's a lot of numbers. So we need to find which one of these can add to 12 or has a difference of 12. So this is out. This is too big. This is too big. That has a difference of 23. That's too big. We have a difference of 12 here. This is a difference of 3. And if we add these up, we get 21. So that's out. So it has to be 6 and 18. So again, since we're looking for two numbers that will multiply to negative 108, one of these has to be negative. But we need a positive 12. So if we do the math here, if we have a negative 6 plus 18, we get our positive 12 here. And so this, and then if you multiply these two, they will equal negative 108. And so we're going to use a negative 6 and a positive 18 on this problem. And so I'm going to write down the original equation here, 4x squared, but instead of 12x, I'm going to put a negative 6x plus 18x, and then minus 27. And so this is what I'm going to have to use the grouping method on. Whew, so here we go. So is there a greatest common factor of 4 and negative 6? Let's find out. So I'm plugging in the GCF function here, doing 4 comma negative 6, and I get a 2. So I can factor out a 2. And then these both have a variable that I can pull out, so I can pull out an x. And so that leaves me with, well, if I divide 4 by 2, we get 2. And if I divide by negative 6 by 2, I get a negative 3. And then so now if I factor out an x here, so x squared became x, so 2x times 2x is 4x, and then I don't need to pull out an x here or multiply an x with my negative 3 because 2x times negative 3 is a negative 6. So my factors of 4x squared minus 6x are 2x and 2x minus 3. Now I'm going to copy down my 2x minus 3 here because that's the power of the grouping method. And I'm going to multiply what times 2 gets me 18. Well, that's a positive 9. And if you're not sure, you can find the greatest common factor of 18 and negative 27. And you'll get 9 as well. So 9 times 2x is 18x. 9 times a negative 3 is a negative 27. So these are the factors of 18x minus 27. I can now group together my 2x and my plus 9 as one factor. And I can group together my 2x minus 3 as another factor. And these are the factors of 4x squared plus 12x minus 27. It's a long problem, but these hard ones are the ones that if you really understand, it makes the other problems a lot easier. I'm going to stop this video here, and hopefully this helps you out. Have a good day. Bye-bye.